Okay, so my name is Lisa. I know a fair few of you on this call, but for those of you that don't know me, I'm Head of Business Development at Clean Slate Training and Employment, home to Quids. So yes, for those of you who don't know who we are a not-for-profit community interest company, and we support people on low incomes across the UK with money guidance, employment support, and digital skills. Jeff will explain in a bit more detail about what we do. But in a nutshell, we do this through one-to-one support, through group workshops, and through Quids magazines, guides, e-newsletters, and digital tools. The Quids Professional Network is dedicated to ending hardship and poverty across the UK by uniting professionals who share this mission. The majority of you here today, I know, are already a part of this network, but if not, you will have the opportunity to sign up at the end. And there'll also be details in how to do so in the follow-up communications. So, welcome. Before we start, please could everyone turn off their mics except for the speakers. Jeff will be leading the webinar, and he'll be joined by Lynsey Sweeney, who's the Managing Director at Communities at Work, and Madeleine, who is the Quids Communications Lead. And there will be time for Q&As at the end before bringing the webinar to a close. If you have any questions as we go along, please can you type them into the chat function, and we will answer them in the end. So we'll do Q&As at the end, but if you think of something as you go along, then please type it into the chat function. And yeah, we will have a Q&A session at the end of the presentations. I will be posting a link to a feedback form in the chat. Please can you fill this out before you leave, just so we can better understand what worked best and what you'd like to see from events in the future. So yeah, please fill that out before you leave. So I think that's all the housekeeping. So let us begin. I'd like to hand over to Jeff Mitchell, who is the founder and managing director of Clean Slate and Quids. So over to you, Jeff.
Thanks, Lisa. Okay, let's hope the tech holds up, but bear with me a second while I get the presentation shared. Good to see you all this morning. Thanks for coming. Okay, hopefully you can all see that. Yeah, thanks for coming. This webinar is called Quids we get the big reveal, really. Looking at our cost of living survey and the findings from amongst our social tenants who read Quids guides and emails and other products. I'm Jeff Mitchell. I'm the Managing Director of Clean Slate Training and Employment, founder of Clean Slate, but also of Quids Money Guidance, which I'll be talking through and introducing in a bit more detail before leading into the main findings of the survey. The idea is for us to present really. I think we all know that the cost of living is biting still and affecting people on lower incomes. And what we want to do with these findings is really just sort of focus on how it's hurting and who in particular it's hurting. I'll introduce Clean Slate and Quids properly, go through the findings of the survey. Just to say that the slides will be available afterwards. There's a lot of data which can be a bit dull. I've tried to present them in a slightly more accessible way, but you will have time if you want to go through those details. And someone did mention to me the other day, of course, it's all right for people to take screenshots during presentations, and that's, you know, if there's something that you think you want to keep hold of before I scoot on, then please, you know, that's absolutely fine too. And I'm going to put some of the findings into the context of government policy, in particular around employment and health developments as well. So just to introduce Clean Slate and Quids a bit more formally, Clean Slate is in business to help people out of financial hardship. We are a not-for-profit community interest company, and we ostensibly work on helping people manage their money as well as they can, find employment or better employment, and get online. And our digital inclusion work is generally about in order to help them manage their money better and find employment. We also have our Quids Pro, Quids Professional Network, and we have around over 5,000 partners on that list from across the UK who are all engaged and committed to ending hardship in the UK. There are four pillars to the work that we do within Clean Slate. We have one-to-one support delivered both in person at our drop-in centres, primarily in London and the west of England, but we are looking at other areas as well. And we have a virtual service delivering remote support by phone and online, working with landlords, DWP referrals, and other people who are sent along to us, for instance, from local authorities or looking for crisis and hardship grants. We have training courses both on employment, so community training on employment and money guidance. And we also have a peer support training program, which is actually paid work experience that brings people through, gives them a sense that they can work, and then ultimately potentially joining our team or finding employment elsewhere. We have a range of magazines and guides, which I'll come back to in a second, and also digital tools and resources, including a personal finance email specifically for people on low incomes, as well as online tools on the Quids magazine.com website. And for the professionals in our network, we have a monthly newsletter, which includes briefings and reports and blogs, webinars like this one, and training for frontline workers and others who want to, for instance, on understanding universal credit or on increasing confidence to help people manage their money. This is Quids magazine. As you can see, it's not like publications from the government or the Money and Pension Service. It is designed to look more tabloid. We have a range of guides. This one is one that we produced in Bengali for our work in East London. We have a Welsh edition. We have translated editions of our winter guide as well, which we produced in Bristol last winter to help people worried about the winter fuel allowance. So this Quids guide to universal credit, and we have a money email service, which I mentioned earlier, the Quids Readers Club, which we work with partners across the UK to landlords in particular who license the content and send it on to their tenants as co-branded, and sharing information and ideas on ways to improve the bank balance, really. Finally, in terms of introducing us, the staff team got together a few years ago, and we looked at some of the things that really united us in terms of our values, but also in terms of the work that we're doing. And we came up with this pledge to the people that we're working with, and that is that we see you, we hear you, we are you. So we recognize that people from lower incomes are often invisible and often unheard in discussions around policy or service development. Things like while the principles behind universal credit, for example, are in many ways okay, the way that it was delivered, the way that it was rolled out seemed to have taken no account of actually how people live. And people feel that we work with feel very often left behind, left in the dark, and sort of poorly considered in the design of policy and services. And we are them, they are us, because they are part of our organisation. So in this sort of caption here, you can see elements of success. Carol is one of our workers who's now a money coach at a number of drop-ins in London, but she was formerly a service user. She joined our Elements program, did the paid work placement, and was recruited successfully into our service team. And now more than half of our service providers have lived experience of financial hardship, and all of our team leaders within services have that background as well, which I think changes the way that services are delivered and improves the way that we engage with people in parts of the community that are, for many services, harder to reach. You can also see that we are sort of living and breathing that pledge. The magazine, as I said, is tabloid in style, is easy read, and we have people with English as a second language and with lower literacy levels in mind when we produce any content, whether on the magazine, in the magazine, or in the emails that we send out. And you can also see, so this is the edition where we launched our survey. So in terms of seeing people and hearing them, this was people's opportunity to get anything off their chest around money worries and how the cost of living was impacting them. Moving on then into the how we designed the survey and how we delivered the survey. We launched it at the end of November last year, and it ran until the 31st of January this year. Really, it was all about the cost of living. Where this survey, which we've been running now since 2012, started as a reader survey to see how we could improve the magazine. The magazine is about money management, so it is inevitably around the cost of living, what could help people develop their money skills better, as well as understanding how to make Quids In a better read, and understanding the audience as well, so we can see who's reading and how it's affecting people differently. So working with social landlords across the UK, we reached around 120,000 households, and about 90,000 of those were in print, and 30,000 were online. We achieved just under 1,100 responses to the survey, but 99% of those are actually online. So although we had a big reach, the majority of responses were from people that we reached through the Quids In Readers Club, which I think says something about the relationship we have with that audience. But just for today's reporting, we're looking specifically at social tenants, and what we did to verify that was we asked tenants to name the landlord that they were housed by, and then anyone who either didn't fill that in or said they was private or a private landlord or whatever were excluded from these results at least. And the final sample size was 878. So going into what the survey told us then. Each year, Quids In magazines, guides and emails reach around 175,000 people. So what the survey told us was that they're more likely to be aged between 35 and 65. They're more often working age and unable to work, with 47% of the people who responded putting that down. The majority are female, less than half are single, just less than half. 3 in 5 have children. More than a third live with adult dependents. And I think that was one of the statistics that I wasn't aware of before we did this research. We can see in these charts in a bit more detail that there is actually quite a wide range of different age groups who responded to the survey, who are receiving Quids In, which is something for us to be mindful about when designing the content of the magazine, of course. And here we can see quite clearly that the biggest group by working status are those who are working age and not able to work at the moment. This is I think that speaks for itself, the gender makeup. And then in terms of people who, their sort of living circumstances, just under half a year living alone, made up of single and widowed individuals. And there's the 58% living with children at home and adult dependents at home as well. So looking in more detail at the impact of money worries on the lives of social tenants who receive Quids In. 2/5 of them, just under 42%, felt anxious, frightened or depressed. And a similar number had turned off the heating despite being cold. Over a third of respondents had skipped meals on account of money worries, and a fifth, 22%, had felt physically ill. Just under a third had fallen behind with bills, and half of those were falling into rent arrears. 22%, so about 1 in 5, were already struggling with debt payments. Half of the people that we surveyed missed out on family events because of money issues, and a fifth felt that they could not treat their children, give treats to their children. And these figures are across all of those who responded. So these are average figures, regardless of sort of background or groupings. So here we can see those figures. As I said, these slides will be shared. So reiterating what I've just said, really. In terms of falling behind, falling into debt, I think there is a pattern that is well recognised, that people will tend to fall behind with bills before they fall behind with rent payments. And here we can sort of see that's reflected in the order in which people are struggling most. So with bills first, then repayment of debts, and then rent arrears. And then again, across all respondents, just under 15% were falling into rent arrears. Lifestyle impacted, obviously, family life here. In addition to what I've already said, 16% told us they were having arguments with friends or family on account of money worries. It's worth noting some steps that people took that you could argue are a signal of people's financial capability, financial literacy, taking action to try and make the book balance, really. 45% have tried to reduce energy costs. That is a regular theme of Quids In content, is to remind people of different ways that they can bring down the cost of heat, light, power and water costs. But 7% have cancelled broadband, 9% had asked for a prepayment meter, and 10% had cancelled home contents insurance. And these, broadband is people are generally better off if they have access to broadband and ready access to the internet, because they can shop around, they can access services, they can apply for grants, and importantly, they can manage their universal credit claim if they are working age and not in, well, even if they're in full-time work, but if they're on a low income, they could be on universal credit and need that service. Our prepayment meters are often more expensive and more difficult to manage, albeit I do accept that people are working. If they're operating in cash, then a prepayment meter is another example of managing a budget on a day-to-day basis. And then cancelling home contents insurance we will see as an indicator of reduced financial resilience, unable to weather future financial shocks. Interesting, the 1 in 5 started budgeting using cash. I think it's today there's a report released, there's certainly a news story this morning about Parliament looking at how many people are operating in cash and how many businesses are increasingly moving away from taking cash payments. So this is an area of interest for us as well. So we can see those figures there. I think I've talked through those. This is the this is the big reveal, the name of this webinar. Although those figures that I've just shown are probably concerning enough in terms of how people on low incomes are affected by the cost of living, when we actually look at the different, and we start to segment those responses by working status and age, we can see a significant disparity between different groups. Although it's a significant number, it's still relatively low. 3% of people who are older than working age, so retirement age, said they faced serious financial problems. 14% of those who are working age and working said they faced serious financial problems, and 20% of people who responded who were working age and not able to work faced serious financial problems. So we wanted to look in more detail at how the cost of living was affecting this group in particular, which I'm just now going to go through, and then look at what are the implications then if this is the group that is struggling most at the moment. So almost 2/3 of this group, so those who are working age and not able to work, were frightened, anxious or depressed about money worries. And that compares to 35% of all others. So both those who are working age and working, and those who are beyond working age. 50% of people of that group were turning off the heating despite being cold, compared to 40% of all others. and they were twice as likely to skip meals. So actually more than half were skipping meals, compared to 28% of the other groups. Inevitably, more of them were feeling physically ill. So 38% said that it was making them feel physically sick. Unsurprising if they are feeling, if their mental health is under attack, if they're switching off the heating and they're skipping meals. And they were more likely to be forced to take handouts from food banks, fuel banks, or grant sources. Here we can see those stark figures presented as a chart. I think it makes it really clear that against many of the indicators, whichever of the indicators we choose, this group is struggling much more than the others. So what are so that was the health indicators on account of money worries. Then what about the financial impacts? So in terms of falling behind with bills, it was 45% compared to 22% of the other groups. Falling behind with rent was 21%, and it was only 11% amongst people who are either older than working age or working age and employed. And 34%, so a third, were falling behind with debt repayments as well, compared to 16% of the other groups. And it's almost a ratio of 2 to 1 on a lot of these indicators. So twice as many people had self-disconnected from their broadband, that had requested a prepayment meter, or had turned to loan sharks to try and make ends meet. 2/3 of those who are working age and not able to work were missing out on family events, compared to 43% of the others, and a fifth, 21%, were had caused arguments with friends and family. Again, just to repeat, really, the figures are pretty stark when presented in this format. And again, but the ratios of people falling behind with bills, and then repayments of debts, and then on rent, is consistent with this group as it is with the other groups as well. And there were some sort of flags there about how to respond to people who might ultimately be at risk of falling into arrears and facing homelessness, by catching people who are just only starting to fall behind with their bills, for example. So the lifestyle, again, same statistics. The only indicator that bucks the trend here is the performance at work, but of course we're comparing people who's identified as not able to work. So we would assume that was the 5% there are people who formerly worked and were no longer able to work. Okay, and then on this chart we can see how it impacted lifestyle changes. So many of the indicators here are similar between all the groups: turning to cash, using comparison services, reducing energy costs, for example. But again, as those figures are mentioned earlier, there's still those two indicators that people are making quite short-term choices to try and make ends meet. We also found that working age people who are unable to work were less in control of their money, not understanding so much how much money they had coming in each month, what was going out each month, and not really having a tight grip on their finances. They have fewer savings and less easy access to ID documents. So these indicators, financial resilience indicators that we used in the survey, are draw on the 25 questions that we asked within the Clean Slate money coaching service. So we have a program of support where our money coaches work with people either referred for the virtual remote service or dropping in. They do a money health check at the start and the end of our service, and there were 25 financial resilience indicators. And we asked the same questions within this survey, within this reader survey, to give us a sense of where people are at in terms of perhaps sometimes longer term issues. And some of those financial resilience indicators were originally conceived with a migration to universal credit in mind. So we've been using this money health check in its current form for around 10 years, since the start of, well, since after the start of universal credit in the pathway areas where we happened to be working at the time. And things like having ID documents, having savings to fall back on, are things that are really important for people to manage successfully to migrate to universal credit. But then we've got other indicators like cancelling broadband and things like that that should be red flags for us when considering who will be migrating onto universal credit next. Oh, it's people who are working age and not able to work, perhaps currently claiming ESA or PIP or whatever. And just 1 in 3 of the people that responded to our survey said they knew where to find help. So that's something that we, again, could be doing more to support people with. And so these are more of the financial resilience indicators that we use within the Clean Slate Money Coaching Service. And again, from the survey, against each of these indicators, there was a significant demonstration really of people being less financially resilient if they were working age and not able to work. Another question that we asked within the survey, and again, this is where we have having data that goes back 10 years gives us the opportunity to work with researchers who want to look at a sort of on a longitudinal basis and actually compare how patterns have changed over time. So on this slide, you can see, and the sort of left-hand bars are those are the responses that we got from 2015. So if somebody needed to replace a washing machine, how would they do it? So in 2015, 13% they said they would use a credit card, and this year they said 14% said they would do the same. So there's not a significant change in terms of decision making there. But I've added now the latest from the latest data broken down and looking at the choices that people who are working age and not in employment would make, and you can see on the right hand bars of each of those indicators that there was a significant difference within this group, generally speaking. So interesting that 67% would borrow from friends or family. Just joining the dots, it would be interesting to look further at whether or not it's the same people who were having arguments with friends or family. So it'd be, there's obviously pressures there. Still using stores that offer credit, and the number of people that would do without. So interesting that 10 years ago, almost half of our readers said that they would do without if they needed to, and only 24% said that this time. But 3/4 of people who are working age and not in employment said that they might have to do without something like a washing machine if it broke. So in terms of the context, Clean Slate training and employment, we're obviously interested in how we can help people who are struggling financially to access work or better work, obviously if they feel able to. So the agenda that the government is setting out about getting Britain working, both in terms of investing in employment support as well as health services, targeting those who are long-term health conditions and disabilities, is of particular interest, and especially in the context of what I've just shared here. So just like the headlines from this agenda, there's £1 billion worth of government money reported to be going into helping people who are unable to work due to disability or health conditions. This will include tailored support from job coaches and people who are specialists in supporting people with health conditions. Support for employers, expanded welfare to work programs, more training and skills development, and digital resources to improve job readiness, but offer online courses and access to job search platforms. It also includes the right to try guarantee. So this is something that's particularly interesting for us at Clean Slate, where we run our Elements program, taking people with lived experience of hardship who have come through our services who want to try out a paid work placement. It's really important that they don't lose their benefits outright from the start, or that they aren't deemed able to work just because they've taken a few hours a week to just see how they get on. So there's the potential for that to work well for the group that I'm talking about. And certainly in terms of universal credit, I said right at the start, there are lots of things about the system that is an improvement on the previous, on legacy benefits. And one of the things being that people can work, while on universal credit is something that we weren't able to really make happen with people who were previously claiming job seekers allowance, because the fear was, if I work, I just lose my benefits. And so that's been enabled us to be able to engage with long-term unemployed people in a better way, and a more practical way if we're going to be offering training employment opportunities as well as support and training. So there's going to be changes to the work. In addition, there'll be changes to the work capability assessment and extra money put into work health and skill support in 8 areas of, in particular, England and Wales. Of course, the agenda is not without its critics. There's concerns that any stick targeted at disadvantaged groups will make them more vulnerable. So, and I think we can start to see already the number of people reportedly who are receiving disability benefits of various kinds, where even the threat of change is exacerbating or potentially exacerbating their well-being, and that is going to be an issue. The quality of the support that is put into place is going to be is critical, and the speed at which both things happen. So there could be health support, there could be employment support, and there could be changes to conditionality on whether or not people receive their benefits, depending on whether they're complying with new DWP regulations. But if they're not in sync, then people could just get caught between a rock and a hard place. And the potential, I struggled to decide whether to call it potential or likelihood, that poverty could increase, I think is pretty serious and something that we should be looking at. And as I've said, in all of our statistics are, this is the group who are struggling most with the cost of living, but this is also the group that the government want to get into work. And I have to say that I do think that for those who can work, employment is probably the best, most sustainable route out of poverty and hardship, and that's kind of the principle that Clean Slate is built on. As a sort of former managing director of the Big Issue, it's very difficult for people to argue against sort of my experience that that having occupation and earning your own money, is transformative to many people, even those who are destitute and homeless. And the same applies, and we found it time and again throughout the years that Clean Slate's been working. Just in terms of how Clean Slate does work, I've kind of given some hints on this already. We take a money first approach with a money health check, and then money coaching, and we have paid work placements for people who are long-term unemployed as well, where we can, where we're funded to do so. Our biggest successes have often been amongst people who feel unable to work. So the idea of offering a few hours a week of paid work, in the very early days of Clean Slate, I was literally asking long-term unemployed people to do me a favor and come along and help with this project that we've been, I remember at one point, packing sexual health kits for a project in Bristol, where we're doing the work in Bristol, but it's for a project in Bath. And people came along saying, oh, well, yeah, I could probably help you with that. And we were able to provide paid work, and then they wanted more. And then they kept coming back, and then they attended the training. And then you could see that actually they were starting on this path. It's a bit harder to do that as a bigger organization, asking people for favors just to kind of trick them into realizing, oh, I could do some work. But the principles remain that actually, if it's short-term, small-scale, paid work, people can start to find, actually, maybe I could do this, even if I couldn't do full-time work. And that is kind of, it plays into this idea that maybe there are opportunities to support people who feel unable to work. Obviously, many people will need the health support to be able to get to that point. Again, I mentioned the money health check. These are key indicators from the service that we run, the money coaching service that we run. These stats are from people who are relate to people who are have long-term health conditions or disabilities. And because we run the money health check at the start and the end of our service, and it runs, we ask the 25 financial resilience questions, we can show that actually there is an impact on the people that we're working with. So we're able to demonstrate sort of an improvement in people's financial resilience between the start and end of the service. And I think being able to demonstrate with data the impact of the service is obviously something that we hope will be useful to our sort of growth and scaling up and partnerships with other people. So just coming to the end now, the data that we have more data than we have capacity available to utilize, really. So what I've done here, really, and what we're doing with the data that we've collected to date is focus on how to improve the content of our Quids in materials so that information can be shared and in a way that is going to make the biggest difference to people and their financial well-being and resilience, and also in order to help us target services more effectively. So we had a staff meeting this week, and one of the things we were looking at was how could we improve the financial gains amongst the people that we work with. Well, actually, if we are more targeted at working with those who are working age and not able to work at the moment, there might be bigger impact that we can make in that way. And this data tends to show that tends to suggest that would be the case. We also found that over half of the survey respondents said that they would be prepared to take in further research, although we did say, some of that could be paid by researchers who want their opinions and their insights, and that in turn sort of generates opportunities to collaborate with other researchers and other partners who want to survey the same group to go deeper into those insights. But also the data we have that we haven't been able to utilize yet is available to partners who want to work with us on understanding what this is telling us more for the future. So just another plug for the Quids in Professional Network. I hope you want to join, and we'll encourage your sort of colleagues and contacts to join as well, because we'll be sharing this information and doing more of these webinars to try and offer sort of insights and information that can be useful and improve our collective effort to end hardship and poverty in the UK. So that's very much the sort of whistle stop through the findings of our cost of living survey.
Great, thank you, Jeff. Thank you so much. That's well, really insightful. I hope everyone found that to be the case. I think we're moving on to Madeleine.
Hello. Hi, everyone. I'm just going to share my screen right now. I said it in the chat, but I'm the comms lead for Clean Slate. So I work on the digital publishing side of what we do through Quids in. So today I want to take a closer, we wanted to take a closer look at the role of information sharing in helping people with the cost of living crisis, and specifically looking at the impact of Quids in magazines, guides, newsletters, and our website. So a portion of our survey asked people if they read any of our Quids in materials. So we're comparing the group that said they did not read any of our materials to the group that said they did read. And we're exploring, does the information that we give people really make a difference? Our sample size is just including social landlords that license our Readers Club, because basically all of the respondents, some of them came through our services, came through money coaching. So we really wanted to eliminate that group from this particular sample size because we just wanted to look at people who had outcomes because of information sharing. And something else to note is our data showed that readers of Quids tend to have better cost of living outcomes compared to non-readers. The income levels of both of these groups had a very similar distribution. So basically the same proportion earned above £385 a week and the same proportion earned below. So the key differences that we see are not income-based. It's better outcomes despite income levels. But we can't definitely conclude that reading the Quids materials cause the better financial outcomes because there's many factors at play. For example, maybe people read Quids because they are already highly motivated to help themselves. But the results do suggest that readers may be better equipped, more motivated or resourceful in managing their finances. And this gives us a powerful direction because it can help us help people become more informed, connected, better engaged. Okay, so if we look at the results, so across multiple areas in terms of financial resilience, readers showed stronger outcomes. So twice as many said that they were confident their money would last until the next payday. These are in percentages, by the way, so 12% versus 24%. They were also significantly more likely to regularly save and be free of debt or rent arrears. These are kind of important markers of day-to-day financial stability. And then we also saw a higher level of behavioral action. So readers were more likely to take steps to cut their energy bills or say no when under pressure. So this can indicate that they're not just informed, but they're using information in practical ways. There was one area out of all of our 20 financial resilience indicators where non-readers outperformed readers, and that was wanting to make more money and having a plan to do so. There could be many reasons for this. It could reflect ambition, but it might also reflect feeling more financial pressure. And this may also kind of counter the idea that the reason why readers do better is because they're more financially motivated, because in this case, it seems like non-readers might be more financially motivated. So perhaps information sharing is the difference. And either way, it points to an opportunity. For example, for us, maybe we can build some more proactive goal setting into our content for those who are ready for it. Okay, so one of the most telling differences we found was in people's confidence towards managing money. We found that nearly 30% of readers reported feeling very confident about managing their money compared to just 19% of non-readers. So this is just adding the completely confident and very confident figures together. And then on the other end of the scale, fewer readers said that they weren't confident at all. And it's not just a soft metric. Financial confidence plays a huge role in behavior, that people who feel more capable are more likely to plan, to budget, to avoid crisis borrowing, and to take preventative action. So the data can reveal that perhaps accessible information isn't just about facts, it builds belief, and that belief can drive action. So we can see that belief driving action when it comes to money worries. So when it comes to the emotional toll of money worries, we saw some differences. Readers were 24% less likely to feel unable to treat their kids to something they wanted. They were 10% less likely to need food banks or hardship grants. and 14% fewer had fallen behind on bills. These are for readers. These are tangible improvements in people's daily lives. I mean, being able to treat your child, not needing a food bank or staying on top of your bills. It's not just about money, it's about having stability, pride, and overall a sense of control. However, at the same time, readers are not immune to the pressures of the wider crisis. When it comes to severe crisis, so skipping meals, feeling anxious, becoming physically unwell, turning off heating, having serious financial problems, we found that there was little difference between readers and non-readers, so they almost scored the same amount. I think this is an important reality check, showing that information alone can't fix structural problems that people are facing. And even when people do feel confident managing their money, they'll still feel the effects of the cost of living. But I think the important thing to keep in mind is that it's all about building financial resilience. If information can help people cope better, take some proactive actions, and avoiding sliding deeper into crisis, it's just a piece of the puzzle, not the whole solution, but a very important one. So thus far, we were looking at the comparisons between readers and non-readers for the three housing associations that license Quids in. And now we're just going to focus on what readers actually said and how readers value and describe the information that they receive from Quids in. So 95% of readers said they found Quids in useful. So whether that was somewhat useful, very useful, incredibly useful, it's a strong indicator of the trust and relevance. And 60% of that group found it highly useful. So this suggests going beyond the content being something that's just nice to have and is seen as perhaps more essential guidance in difficult times. 29% said it made them think more carefully about their finances. And that kind of reflection is what helps shift behavior over time. It signals that perhaps readers aren't just skimming, they're internalizing and evaluating their decisions. 37% said reading the materials helped them feel less alone. I think this is particularly important because financial pressure can be incredibly isolating, and just knowing that others are facing similar challenges and that there's support out there can make people feel more hopeful for the future. And then 26% acted on advice or got help as a result of reading Quids in. I think this one is one of the most meaningful indicators of impact. It shows that the information we provide isn't just sitting on the page, it's actually prompting real action. So yesterday I went to a Money Guiders Network event. We had a great speaker. He's a behavioral scientist that looks into the psychology of money. His name's Stian Reimers. And he said something quite throwaway. It wasn't like on a presentation like this, but I thought it was really relevant to what we're talking about today. And he said, you don't have the opportunity to change if you don't know something. I think while we can't say that information alone solves every problem, I think the data shows that it does clearly make a meaningful difference. And I think this quote captures the heart of it. People can't change their situation if they don't know what's possible. And what Quids in does is it breaks that barrier. It gives people tools, clarity, and encouragement to take action. And yeah, what we've seen is that informed readers, even on the same income, are more confident, more resilient, more likely to seek help or explore further resources. And in a cost of living crisis, those small steps staying out of arrears, avoiding hardship grants, treating your kids really matter. So what we're really trying to do with Quids In is remove that barrier, and it gives people the information that they need, so that change becomes possible. So yeah, that's what we found, and I think it really reinforces the work that we've been doing. So even though people were still struggling with the pressures of the financial, of the cost of living crisis, I think it really shows the difference that information sharing can make on more smaller actions and steps that can lead to financial resilience. So, yeah.
Yeah, it really does, Madeleine. It really does. Thank you so much. Really, really useful. And yeah, please reach out if anyone here would like more information about Quids In products and our Quids In Readers Club. We can share that with you. Okay, so now our final speaker is Lynsey Sweeney. Welcome, Lynsey, and I'll hand over to yourself.
Oh, thanks. It's been a real, I'm not sure if pleasure is quite the right word, but a real education listening to the survey results this morning. I'll do a brief introduction, but I wanted to say very well done, really, to Jeff, Lisa and Madeleine for pulling that quite substantial, important and influential survey together. I think there's a lot that we at Communities at Work and other sector partners can do with that survey and that information, not least the likes of Citizens Advice, Joseph Rowntree Foundation, the Trussell Trust, all of whom use data day in, day out, and who I think would really benefit from reviewing and understanding some of the insights that have come through that. So many thanks for sharing that today, and thanks for involving and inviting so many people to join this presentation today. So very briefly, I'm Lynsey Sweeney, and I look after an organisation called Communities That Work. I've done that for about 10 years, and the organisation is about 10 years old. And we are a collection of social housing providers who got together to understand and improve our responses as a sector to welfare reform, to employment support, and to the life chances and outcomes of tenants and residents and the wider communities that we serve. So social housing is part of the picture, but it's a substantial and a significant part of the picture. To our audience here, I can see there's quite varied audience here. So in a nutshell, our members, of which there are about 90 organisations, they own and manage 1.6 million homes in England, all social housing. Overall, there's about 5 million social housing properties in the country. And so what we represent is a portion of the sector that's particularly active and interested in what we can do to support working age tenants and residents into better life outcomes, which includes work, but also includes financial resilience, digital resilience, and some of the softer skills and outcomes which are so important to moving people towards a more sustainable life and livelihood, and a better quality life and livelihood, such as an ability to take control, to make decisions, to have information, etc. All those things are real bedrock support services which are essential to supporting people. So we don't represent the whole sector, but we work really well with the National Housing Federation, with lots of other trade bodies in social housing, and the whole sector really has over the last 10 years become more and more aware of the support it needs to give and understand for its tenants and residents, especially who are of working age. And that's because things like welfare reform have come along to put on new and different pressures, and new programmes from government, from Job Centre Plus and others, have come through, placing a greater expectation on work as a society and as a government. So there's pros and cons in that. It's a decent aspiration. We share what Jeff said, that work is a good route out of poverty, but it's got to be done right, and it's got to be done in a supportive way, and not stick, but all carrot really is in our experience what works. So we are about influencing the government, sharing our voice and experience, and increasing the role that social housing has as social landlords in neighbourhoods in supporting working age people into work. And we never think we're going to do that all alone. We're all about doing that in partnership with other organisations and other agencies. And information sources such as Quids are a really important part of that picture in a local neighbourhood. And I know that a number of our members work with Quids. So that's communities that work. We lobby the government for support and understanding of social housing. And I'll just mention a couple of areas of work. I'll put links in. I know this is being recorded and shared, so I'll add a few links to go with that pack after the event today. But we're particularly pleased and hopeful that an initiative which has trialled out in the United States for 30 years and done very well, we lobbied and successfully got 10 pilot sites in England to run. It's called Jobs Plus. It is unfortunately really close to Job Centre Plus as a name. I apologise, we didn't have much control over that. But it's called Jobs Plus. It's really different. It's neighbourhood centred, housing led, but really partnership driven sites in an area, in a neighbourhood, which people can access, can go to, but which also really crucially go out, door to door, neighbour to neighbour, word of mouth, shops, libraries, cafes, school gates. They are peopled from estates and neighbourhoods, supported by Jobs Plus managers who might be from the estate and neighbourhood, and really use person to person, really old school, from eye contact to handshake to door knock contact with people to talk about what's going on in life, what those pressures might be, the kinds of results that we saw from the survey, what's happening day to day, how you're feeling, and what's the pathway to improving that. If you need it to be improved, what's the situation, what are the options? The end goal is probably employment, but it might be some way off. It might be part-time, it might be partial, it might require a whole range of other supports come in first. There's no pressure, there's no time limit, and it is really person to person centered. So Jobs Plus exists in 10 areas in England, and we're really keen to see how it works and learn lessons from it. And it's DWP funded, the Treasury support it, and our members, the 9 organisations involved in delivering the 10 pilot sites, are also involved in supplying resources, building, support. So we're keen to understand what Jobs Plus can do to support people in this space, and it is hyper local, really neighbourhood centred. You could walk or bus it, or be within a really meaningful distance. If you think about your neighbourhood where you live, it's within a sort of range and a radius that is all within reach of the local services, the local transport, and local people you might see as if you step out of your front door. So Jobs Plus is key for us, and we lobbied the government for that, and we want to see it work, and we think it's got an important part to play in supporting people who are a bit further away from the labour market. A very sort of unhelpful term really is economically inactive. It's a national statistical term. You will hear the government talk about economic inactivity a lot. And many of the reforms that Jeff mentioned in Get Britain Working, all of that policy piece, the Pathways to Work consultation now, which is open with government, which is looking at welfare reforms, which are controversial. It all goes towards trying to level up the chances, life chances and opportunities for people who have self-identified as ready and willing, or with the right support, ready and willing to get into work if the right support was there at the right time. So it's not about placing undue requirements and commitments on people that are not ready for them. It's all about supporting people who need some support to get towards work. And there's a range of ways in which that support can take place. So we work with government to try and realise their ambitions. We also give them a reality check about how to make sure that their ambitions come with protections and that people are not left exposed and at risk of being poorer still as a result of welfare reforms. I was interested in what Jeff was saying around universal credit, and it's coming to a sort of milestone year. I'm sure many people on this call will understand universal credit as a reform that came out in 2010 in previous governments. It's at its point now, by the end of this year, of completing its process. It was set to take 7 years. It's taken 15, but it has happened. And there's a whole range of reforms and incentives that have come into play with universal credit that weren't really there before. And the final stage is happening now. And the most significant stage that I wanted to highlight today is that it is our understanding that from March to December this year, the DWP is sending 63,000 letters a month to ESA claimants, so employment support allowance claimants, telling them that their ESA claim is going to end in 3 months, and that if they want to renew and refresh a claim, they need to make a fresh application onto universal credit. So this is hundreds of thousands of people. It's happening now. It's going to cause some concern and some anxiety. And we're keen to understand how the likes of Quids and the support that Jeff and the team provide can come right in with those letters and help support people to think about what their options are and how they get their ID together, how they make a claim to a fresh claim together if they need to do that, which many will need to do, and how that conversation is not just a demand from government about an administrative change which affects their life and income, but is a chance to have a conversation at the door, in the street, on the sofa about who they are, how they are, and what help can be put in place to create a pathway towards a different life and series of outcomes around work and skills and financial resilience and all the rest of it. It's a long and complicated journey, as any kind of transformation that any of us might try and make is. It's not binary. You don't flick a switch and it's done. It's a process, but we all need to be involved in that process. And social housing is a major partner in reaching people who are further from work or who need a little bit of different support to get into work, but also has decent data on where people are and what their situation is. So in listening to what Jeff said and then Madeleine, I wanted to just say a little bit about social housing, and I won't take sort of too much time now because I know we want to get to Q&A, but there's various perceptions of social landlords and how they manage people and households and communities. A really recent insight from Walsall in the Midlands came yesterday, and it really made me stop and think. A small or medium-sized housing association with a few tens of thousands of properties in a neighbourhood, it operates and exists in one of the top 10 poorest areas in England by all the measures that the government used to measure poverty. However, they've got one of the lowest rent default rates and one of the lowest, almost zero eviction rates in their area. And the reason they state for that is they are absolutely front foot on support for tenants and residents, and in signposting and communicating with tenants and residents about what is there for them. And making sure it's accessible, that it's complete, it's a comprehensive picture, and that people are enabled to get that support. So it shows that landlord-led support can make a huge difference. And in areas where you might assume the stats are going to go against services and landlords, and there's going to be a lot of exacerbation of issues around, spirals of poverty, unable to pay bills. Actually, the landlord, with a lot of partners in that area, is slowing that almost to a halt and protecting people who need a little bit of protection, but also having that conversation about where now and what's next. And they're doing a whole range of work around skills, confidence, well-being, moving towards employment support, moving towards sustainable livelihoods, and taking it at a pace which suits the person that they're working with. So this type of flexible government, this type of flexible support is very hard for the government to commission and understand. Social housing is better at it. Been working with partners, but we need government support to back that up. It's not something that the sector can just do as part of its day-to-day mission. We really can't afford to do that, but we can do it in partnership with government. So we're pushing always and consistently to find new ways to partner with government and to help to realise national ambitions, which do make sense around supporting people into a better life and livelihood, but for which there are very many traps along the route, and we really need to be careful to protect people, households and communities as they make a transition from long-term poverty, just about coping on minimum incomes, to taking the risk and taking the chance on work and being protected to make that transition, or to move in and out for a little bit as they gain security and stability. Nobody has one job for life, and most of us have probably lost a job and had to go and find another one. That's life. We need to protect people to understand that shock and go with them and not have a real crisis point at that point. So person-centered, community-led, information-driven, all things which are kind of really resonating with me as I've sat and listened to this new research and new findings, as well as thinking of ways we can use it at communities that work in our work going forward, both with government partners and with other agencies. We'll certainly be sharing the information across our member newsletter this week and across our wider social networks. And we're keen to understand in Q&A now, really, what you guys think, how you're working towards supporting individuals, households, communities, and what support you might need from communities at work or from Quids and the professional network. So I'll leave it there, but thanks. It's been a real privilege to listen to this information and to think about how that affects our work. So thank you very much, Lisa, Jeff, Madeleine.
Amazing. Thank you, Lynsey. Really, really interesting. Thank you so much for your time. Okay. We have about 15 minutes left. So we're going to kind of open the floor now a little bit and have a Q&A session. I don't think there are any questions currently in the chat, but I was about to say, but please do raise your hand if you'd like to ask a question in person. And Ian, over to you.
Thank you very much. Great presentations. Thank you very much for that. Really disappointing, but really interesting, I guess, and not surprising, I suppose, all in one, but really well presented. A couple of stats, I guess, came out for me that might generate a bit of a conversation. 1 in 3 said they don't know where to get help, and yet they filled in a Quids survey. That I can't get my head around that. The number of times we've had similar things within Astor, sorry, Ian Corey from the Astor Group, where our customers seem to tell us they don't know that they can come to us for help. And that comes out in various Quids surveys, and yet we think we're very good at offering help. And I don't know whether it's something to do with the landlord being the enforcer as well as the advisor, and so they don't want to talk to someone about debt and stuff if they've got a debt with us, for example. So I don't know whether there's something that Quids could do, just having just a box in every single magazine that just says where to get help, and your landlord, if you're a social landlord, could well be the top of that. So that was an interesting statistic that came out. And then the other one that came out for me was around washing machines, where very few people approach a charity to get a washing machine. And I know Astor have kind of dipped our toes in that world where of recycled furniture, second-hand furniture, all of that kind of thing. And we dropped it like a stone a number of years ago because the costs were just spiraling and the outcomes weren't justifying the costs. But it seems that we've got a lot of advice agencies that are very good with the talky stuff. I struggle to find or to know about charities that provide physical support, second-hand washing machines that are free, carpets that are free, furniture that is free, beds that are free for people. And I don't know whether there's a gap in that space or whether it's just the area I work in. So I guess that's open for a conversation. I certainly haven't got a solution, but it's open for a conversation, I guess, if that helps. Thank you.
Jeff, do you want to respond to the first point
Yeah,
there?
yeah. I think so. In the magazine, so in the printed magazine that we send out once a quarter, we do have half a page which has got useful contact details. So useful numbers, websites for debt advice agencies and general support, different kinds of support agencies. I think we've got it in the emails that we send out as a useful numbers box. And we could certainly do more to promote that. I wonder if, but obviously because we're a national enterprise on that, on the Quids inside, it is national numbers, and maybe people are looking for local support. Maybe they are looking for face-to-face. Our experience at Clean Slate since the pandemic is that face-to-face is not the be all and end all that it used to be for people. But again, there must be something, definitely we can look at increasing that and tackling that statistic itself. We provide where we provide one-to-one services and measure the impact of that service. People are still saying at the end of that they don't know where to go for help, and they've been working with us for sometimes 6 or even 12 weeks, right? So I think there is what do they mean by help that they're not finding or not accessing? Maybe it's someone to perhaps walk through things more intensively than probably most services could do. But yeah, that's definitely something that we could look at to signpost better, so that people feel that they, and maybe we can drill into that data and see actually what's which groups are saying what, and try and piece that together.
Yeah, I think sometimes as well it's the answer to that question, do you know where to get help, it's like is outside of the person that's helping them there and then. So outside of that, they don't know where else to go for support. But yeah, I think you're right. I think we could drill down into that data a little bit more.
The one thing I would add is that people are more likely to turn to friends and family for advice and support than anywhere else. And that is it becomes problematic, especially around benefits. For example, benefits advice shared between benefit claimants when everybody's experience or entitlement is different is a problem. So that is something to think about as part of that conundrum as well.
And there was just to follow, there was a article I read yesterday, I think it was from the Money and Pension Service, that used a phrase Flint, I can't even say it, influencers, but with a fin at the start, fin influencers. People who are online who give financial advice on YouTube and whatever other places on YouTube. How old am I? There's plenty of other places that people go to these days, apparently, to get all kinds of advice. And there's all kinds of so-called cool people on there giving advice that is unregulated, probably a bit dodgy, and in some cases completely wrong. And I think that's where people go to these days. People are so afraid with the internet, and they've got friends on the internet. Well, I don't think they have, but they've got influencers who tell them they are. And so they might be choosing those because it's easier to get that, because you don't kind of get challenged back a little bit, and it's a safer place to get your financial advice when it's all coming to you and you're not actually being asked questions as such. So we've done an article in our internal newsletter just warning people about the dangers of those influencers when it comes to financial advice, and wanted to check those out. So I just I'll mention that.
Yeah, that's a really valid point, Ian. Thank you. I think I heard that term recently as well. I can't say it either. In response to the point you made about white goods, Rupert has raised a point that they complete a number of grants for white goods and carpet. They're based in Bristol, but there are restrictions on funding the items. So this is an issue as individuals cannot make up the shortfall. Rupert, do you want to come in at that point? Don't worry if you don't want to speak, but if you do.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, great, thank you.
So basically before there was kind of on flooring, we could get, the carpet fitted for the client through the whole house, really, through several local charities, but now they've restricted it to £400. So, which is great, but it probably only does part like a corner of the house or something, and clients cannot make up that shortfall. We do have a cost of living fund at Westall, which was given to us by the local authority. So what we're saying to people is we'll give you supermarket vouchers, and then that kind of offsets the money you might have, but often it doesn't work like that. But that's how we're trying to support clients in making up that shortfall. Often they just have the carpet in one room, and then we have to look for other funding streams. And I just want to make a point on the benefits about friends and family. We have seen, I'm a benefits advisor and a navigator. We have seen a huge increase in advice around benefits coming through Wessel. I mean, it's probably fourfold from last year. So we do get, oh, so-and-so's got PIP and they don't seem to have anything wrong with them. Why don't I get PIP? Or I should get PIP because so-and-so gets PIP. But generally, we've seen a huge increase in people coming to us regarding PIP, child DLA and attendance allowance. So yeah, I don't know if it's the opposite because we're in Bristol. I don't know why, but there has been a significant increase in demand.
Yeah, no, I think you're right, Ruth. I think that's across the board. Yeah, we're certainly funding the same at Clean Slate as well. So yeah, thank you for that. Donna has also pointed out that across Bath and North East Somerset, you can call Reach for help with grants for white goods as well. So thank you for that, Donna. Did you want to come in at all? Don't worry if you don't. But thank you.
Yeah, it was really just to sort of say that so we can support people to get white goods, flooring, beds, furniture, and we also can help people with rent arrears and people who are struggling with mortgages as well.
Great.
That's really useful. And just probably what Donna and Rupert seem to have said is that there are grants out there that allow, but I guess I was thinking of something that is beyond just the grant, is actually a work thing about being able to collect secondhand goods from people, being able to check them over, improve them, repair them and sell them. If you think of all the skills that were involved in that, in terms of driving, in terms of repair, in terms of sales, they are really good skills that are for thousands and thousands of different types of jobs. And so that opportunity to try to teach people some skills and to get them involved in work, a bit like you were saying, Jeff, around come and help. Oh, and suddenly I'll give you a few quid and now I call it work. But actually they just came in to offer some help. Those opportunities within those types of schemes, I think are massive. And I think that the sector as a whole is very focused on doing the easy work, which is quite right because there's limited resources, and sometimes that easy work is just get the money and pass it out, and then that money goes off and goes into Argos or some national company, as opposed to that money staying local, being purchased off someone local, being repaired by someone local, and being sold to someone local. And that is that's a win-win-win. Maybe there's 4 wins in there, I'm not sure, but there's a lot of wins. But I know how difficult those projects are. But if there's any scope for those projects to be developed, it would be really good to be able to see a model that others could then follow.
We used to have a good link with the Furniture Reuse Network. So obviously as a network, their members are around the UK. So they and it'll be the local sort of recycling and upcycling and sort of furniture collection, do up and sell on programs. And I think there's some stuff we could do there. Again, go back to your point, Ian, a previous point about people knowing where to go. I think it's those national networks. You mentioned beds as well. We have a partnership with a charity based in Leeds called Zarak, who tackle bed poverty. So referrals from schools where kids are coming in having slept on the floor, receiving beds from Zarak, and we work with them to provide financial guidance to the parents so that in addition to them getting delivery of a bed and some basic furniture, sometimes they can have the benefits of the money guidance to be able to never need to take a handout of a bed as well. But I think those programs, they're local and they're few and far between. And if nothing else, not only should there be networks stitched together so that people know where to go, but also case studies and examples of what can be done. That could be helpful, and especially if it's built into employment opportunities. I know Emmaus do a lot of that sort of stuff where they're operating, but it's a different kind of employment model. But the principle is right.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Jeff. So Daniel, you've mentioned an event that you went to by the GLA and Debt Free Advice, where one of the panelists was a finfluencer, is that how you pronounce it, on TikTok? The relationship seemed to serve both well, but obviously, yeah, requires a lot of management. I think that's exactly what Ian was saying. It needs to be monitored. And Alison from Selwood Housing. Hi, Alison. We've seen an increased demand in people wanting to apply for disability benefits. We use partner charities that provide second-hand furniture and goods. Also, we're given household support fund from local authority to provide energy top-ups for prepayment meters, food vouchers and white goods. Our main issue is getting carpets. Alison, I don't know if you want to come in. We've got a couple of minutes left, or if don't worry if you'd rather not speak, but yeah, do say if you'd like to add to that. But thank you for that. That's great. Great input. D, I totally agree. We need to encourage folk to learn skills. Young people would love to get involved. Aaron, you asked about the spelling of Zawak. I've put that in the chat for you. And Daniel, yeah, you're right. Network of repair cafes. I was at a meeting in Lambeth last week, and it's extraordinary. They didn't have any repair cafes across the whole borough until quite recently, but they've recently launched one, and it's going really, really well. So yeah, and focus on reuse, obviously, and developing skills. Yeah, and I think it says it's hard to scale, but I think, yeah, I think they work very well when they're within communities at a very kind of local level. So yes, all good. Sorry, I'm just scrolling through. Jess, you said you tried to set a similar scheme back in 2014, but it had to close. That's a shame. I don't know if you want to come in there to explain a little bit more.
Hi. Yeah, no, we set up a scheme. It was kind of also about reducing landfill, just to repair white goods, train people up to do that, and then sell them at a lower price for low-income families, or I think in some instances they were given away if people were eligible. Yeah, no, unfortunately it didn't succeed, but we're lucky in Wiltshire. We have quite a few reuse charities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's they are around, aren't they? Just about identifying where they are. Amazing. Thank you, Lynsey, for posting some further links in the chat. Right, we're nearly at 11:30, I'm afraid. It's been great to see you all. Thank you so much for joining us. You fill out the feedback form, which has been posted in the chat a couple of times, but please do fill that in before you go if you're able. That would be really, really useful. And we hope you found it. We hope you found it useful. We have got more events coming up. Please sign up to the Quid Pro network, and then you'll receive the communication about future events in our newsletter, also on our website. And please do get in touch if you'd like to find out more about our work and explore ways of working together. So yeah, thanks once again. Enjoy the rest of your day. The feedback form is in the chat, and hopefully see you all again soon.
Thanks, Lisa.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Excellent.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.